or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
This is Patricia Mary, and for the next hour, I will be reading from the Saturday, Sunday, February 14th, 15th issue of Off Duty from the Wall Street Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. From the front page of Off Duty, how far does $1,000 take you on a trip to Paris? We found out. A trip to Paris calls for good eating, plenty of museum time, and a touch or two of luxury. Here's how to check all the boxes without spending a fortune. And this is by Adam Race. We can thank France for some of our best known fairy tales, including Little Red Riding Hood, Beauty and the Beast, and in modern times, the belief that to enjoy Paris as a tourist, you have to be ready to spend big. On a recent trip, I set out to prove that even a strict budget of $1,000, you can eat well, sleep soundly, and immerse yourself in the art and culture that draws millions every year. Here's how I made it work. Day one, $1,000 remaining. Nice shoes, read the welcome mat inside the Citizen M Paris de Lyon Hotel. A fitting quip since I already knew I would be walking a lot to avoid expensive ride shares and taxis. I chose the spunky Marriott property between the Seine and the train station primarily for its location, around 5 minutes on foot from the train and 15 to the 11th arrondissement and the Aris, the neighborhood where I plan to spend most of my time. The price? $440 for 2 nights. That helped too. First impressions had me doubting my decision. Unfinished plywood lined the cramped elevator in my room. A snug, white, space age capsule looked like it had emerged from a 3D printer. Good thing I didn't come to Paris to sit in a hotel. Armed with a lobby coffee and a croissant, the rate included breakfast, I was on the left bank of the Seine within minutes. Along the riverside path, cyclists rode with the wind, and a trio of young filmmakers recorded pigeons fluttering around. La Grande Fenêtre, a 1974 abstract work at the Outdoor Sculpture Museum. After touring the free collection, I headed to the nearby Arab World Institute. That was $13, where I spent much of the visit gazing at a Parisian calligraphy kit. In the next gallery, a 15th century Quran was displayed along a North African Torah and a Coptic Christian Bible. My first splurge came in Marseille. I knew my budget wouldn't work for a dinner at Atelier, a petite one-star Michelin restaurant, but I thought I could swing lunch. In the rear open kitchen, Man and Flurry turned humble winter produce into memorable dishes. Fried sweet potato threads mimicked a mini fennel cake dabbed with jam. Carrots came liquefied into a ginger consomme. Among the many memorable meals I've had in Paris, it stood out at $120. It would be the most expensive of this trip. Nearby at Cafe Nuance, a cool kids hangout with Kool-Aid red lighting, a barista in a vintage Harley Davidson bomber passed me a latte prepared with a smoky Indonesian coffee and cigarettes blend, and that was $6. I stopped in on my way to the Free Carnavat Museum. Among the oil paintings, Art Deco, and geological artifacts. I wasn't expecting a preserved memorial from the days following the 2015 terrorist attack, and it leveled me. My wife and I in Paris during the tragedy, and a decade later, the emotional tether I felt to the city remained taut. Come nightfall, I walked to the 11 arrondissement, known for its dining and shopping. At Eurus Major, a boutique chocolatier inspired by the solar system and run by a trio of sisters, a clerk boxed my 12-piece catch of glitter dust bonbons and painterly planets, and that was $15. Another gawked in horror as a squealing toddler tore through the store while their mom examined the chocolate moon rocks. For dinner, I went old school at the La Renaissance, a century-old, recently revived bistro with chunky terrazzo floors and burgundy baguettes. I opted for the classic onion soup, retro vol au vent, overflowing with mushrooms, and for dessert a la flonate, heady with vanilla and caramel. Dinner cost even less than planned, $69, which left room for a nightcap at Tarantilla, a new Franco-Mexican spot with sexy black and white interiors that immediately made me feel like I stepped into a 1930s noir. Day two, $322 remaining. Despite my shaky initial impression, I soon came around to Citizen M. I slept peacefully and appreciated the room's functionality, including a tablet that controlled the lights, thermostat, and TV. It's no Ritz, but a quick search showed rooms there going for around 10 times the rate of my chosen abode. In my quest to prove the quincenality Parisian experience can be without exorbitant fees, I went in search of affordable perfume workshops. I found one in the Marseilles in the tranquil Japanese concept store Okata. Fragrance specialist Eriko led me down into the interior, a barrel vaulted cellar furnished with glass curio cabinets, hanging brass scales, and a long table for my scent blending experience. And that was $92. In Japan, you want to have an identity with fragrance, but without disturbing others, she said. Advice I could have used in the early 2000s when I bathed in Aqua di Gio. The Japanese accomplished subtle scenting with Nikko Buruko, breathable sachets. To make my own, I mixed a potpourri of sandalwood, hioki wood, palo santo, mint, patchouli, and orange. Tucked into a pocket, the muslin pouch has kept my wool winter coat from oversmelling and reminding me of Paris for all season. Parisian set menus are a budget conscious traveler's best friend, and at Plateau, a lively cafe nearby, I ordered one that included crispy scotch egg, tomatoey Rion Island stew, and a citrus cake soaked in orange blossom syrup for $47. The metro is cheap, but walking's cheaper, and this being Paris, I happily strolled half an hour to the Fontaine Cartier, admission $17, which recently relocated to the first Aramis. Architect Jean Nouvel hollowed out the 19th century Haussmann building to easily adapt tech-heavy, immersive installations, including a typically tippy James Turrell. To kill some time before cocktail hour, I visited the Richelieu Library, which was free, where I joined other tourists peering into the room canopied with a Byzantine inspired nine dome ceiling. At the Bar Las Ambassador at Rosewood's lavish Hotel de Crillon, a bartender in an immaculate white jacket stirred together a drink called Flowers, a cognac old fashioned perfumed with Valtira and vanilla. before pouring it over a large cube embossed with the Citronon's monogram. At $54, including tip and water, it costs more than the dinner I lined up at the cafe. The metro, $5, brought me to the Marseilles location of the Breton-style crepier, where I paired a potato, bacon, and reblochon galette with a I'm sorry, the crepe filled with house-made apple compote and salted caramel for $31. For the whole walk home, my clothes smelled of the Brits' signature buckwheat and brown butter. They could sell it at Bogota. Day three, $37 remaining. I'm sorry, $76 remaining. Add those two up. Up against the early afternoon flight, I cut two more museums from my list, the Victor Hugo House and the Cognac J. Instead, I loped the Seine and the Bastille, and on the way back to the hotel, stopped at the Olga Femme et Fromage and picked up a baguette layered with racy aubergine and preserved Amarant cherries for $11. With $65 left and no time to spend it on souvenirs, I nixed my plans to take public transportation to the Charles de Gaulle and hailed a completely unnecessary but spectacularly convenient car service for $63. What to skip and where to spend. On your next trip to Paris, consider this your cheat sheet to making sure your euros go far. Skip high-end dinners. Spend on splurgy lunches. Lunch is less expensive backdoor into Paris's acclaimed restaurants. At Etal, for example, the five-course meal costs around 1,000 $113 versus nearly $200 for dinner 7 courses. The exquisite cooking and warm service remain the same. Skip the museum pass. Spend on individual visits. At around $101 for 2 days, the popular museum pass stinks like a posé unless you're definitely doing the Louvre, about $38 on its own. Instead, pick and choose your paid museums and balance with the many free ones. Skip rural pastries and spend on everyday excellence. Influence driven bottlenecks have become commonplace at Paris's instantly famous pasterias. Why deal with that when the fruit filled mandolines at Le Comptoir, a shop at the Ritz Hotel, and the berry jeweled tartelettes at Tapestria from the Septen gang offer excellence without drama? From the fashion page, how to look sharp without a suit. These five men's outfits trade formal tailoring for a sleek leather jacket, a dressy rugby shirt, and more. And this is by the Wall Street Journal fashion team. Want to look sharp but find suits overly stuffy? You can do better than simply slipping off your suit jacket or resorting to a safe gingham button up and chinos. Brands from Signa to Suit Supply to buzzy Japanese label Arieli are proposing tons of sleek, pulled together options. To exclude laid back polish, shrug on a refined leather jacket, a smartened up rugby shirt, or a matching shirt and trousers. Take cues from for the office, dinner dates, and weekends from the five outfits below. The better leather jacket. Good news. A bunch of sharp leather blossoms have hit stores lately, armed with a tidy, slightly cropped fit. These jackets offer a cooler, fresher alternative to a classic pea coat or sport coat. We've layered this black goat leather style with a chunky, high collared knit that peeks out at the neck and fits the rugged yet suave vibe. And this jacket is short, it just goes right to the waist. The jacket is expensive at $1,200. The new suit. Think of this matching shirt and trousers as the casual Friday version of a suit. It's sleek on three counts. The shirt and the pants are cut from the same cloth, forest green wool. The shirt is tucked in, which saves the whole thing from coming off pajamany, and the belt is simple and slim, go for about 1 inch wide. And this young man has a dark green shirt, long sleeves, and pair of pants, and they're all the same color. The preppy situation. You can dress up a rugby shirt as long as it's not baggy by tucking it into fussy black pants and adding a subtle belt and black boots. Wear it is or add a slightly oversized herringbone knit sport coat to elevate things further. The fashion guy look. Instead of a tie, reach for a fine knit scarf in the same shade and material as a sweater. It's not too much when knotted simply and paired with streamlined black jeans. Finish the look with a charming Parisian leather lace up. The not too safe classic. It doesn't get more classic than a blazer and chinos. Add texture and swagger with a speckled sweater, fashioned wide chinos, and a white tee peeking out of the neck. You are listening to the reading of articles and features from Off Duty from the Wall Street Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. An article from the Style page. Diamonds are forever. Divorce rings are for what comes after. Forget returning the ring. The end of some marriages mean a chance to reset stones into new jewelry symbolizing freedom and a new chapter. And this is by Chevy Lieber. The diamond ring Alex Weinstein wears every day is a reminder that, though once upon a time she said, I do, these days she happily says she does not. Weinstein got divorced last March and tossed her engagement ring in a drawer for a few months. Then the Tampa, Florida based content creator decided to make herself a divorce ring. She reset a radiant 3 carat stone from her ex husband in gold, turning it east to west in a bezel. The tiny diamonds from her Havre engagement rings brand now swirl around Reinstein's finger in an open ended loop that serves as a metaphor. The ring says, my story is not finished, says Weinstein, who is 32. The shame and stigma of a divorce has been replaced for some women with empowerment and celebration. While diamond rings long have been a cultural signifier of marriage, some women are also choosing to mark the end of their matrimonies with a little bling. I'm not proud of getting divorced, but I am proud of putting myself first, says Weinstein. Why shouldn't I celebrate this chapter of my life? The cost of redesigning an engagement ring can start at about $2,000 if the stone is just being reset in a new band. Lauren Bach, founder of Brooklyn based Hera Fine Jewelry, says she likes to add color stones to divorce rings to make them feel whimsical and perhaps more importantly, not like an engagement ring. She said the addition of lab grown rubies and diamonds can cost another $100 to $300 depending on the design. Molly Suarez, owner of the Tampa based jewelry showroom West Shore Diamond, who made Weinstein's divorce ring, says she has been resetting divorced women's engagement diamonds into necklaces and earrings for years, but has noticed that more clients now want rings. They're more loud and proud, says Suarez. She typically advises them to go for something different and non bridal, like antique settings or a wide band. Gold prices are so high, and so a chunky gold piece would be a status symbol in itself. In divorce litigation, some states in the U.S. consider the engagement ring to be a conditional gift that belongs to the recipient after marriage, says Jackie Combs, a marriage and family law attorney at Blank Rome. Sometimes women tell Soares, the Tampa jeweler, that they fear their diamonds come with bad energy, but she says she firmly tells them to stop giving an object so much power. Model Emily helped divorce rings go mainstream after she split from her husband. In 2024, the model and actress shared online that she had the two large diamonds from her engagement ring refashioned into two rings. Reclaiming the stones and making it about yourself and your journey can be extremely empowering, says Allison, the New York based jeweler who made Emily's engagement ring as well as her new rings. Fashion stylist and entrepreneur Rachel Zoe is currently reworking one of her diamond rings into a dramatic cocktail ring. The 6 carat crushed cut stone given to the reality TV star by her ex husband after the birth of their eldest son is being reset by New York jeweler Raymond into a dome like setting. It will be surrounded by diamonds for a distinctly 1960s feel. Zoe says she believes a cultural narrative around diamond rings should evolve. You don't need to be married to a man or married in general to have a ring like this for yourself, says Zoe. Call it a freedom ring or an independence ring. Deb Marino, an HR professional in Orlando, Florida, spent about $3,000 repurposing her engagement ring. She took her 1 carat oval diamond and had it reworked into a ring that features an evil eye underneath the stone. I want to ward off evil, which is my ex, says Marino, who's 33. The ring also has sapphires, her 3-year-old daughter's birthstone. The gems remind Marino that even though her marriage didn't work out, it gave her a daughter. My ring signifies that we have one beautiful life, so why waste it, says Marino. Corey Lakey, a content creator in Los Angeles, tried to get comfortable with the divorce ring concept. She tried wearing a new, dainty gold ring with a tiny diamond, but decided against it, wary of the questions it might invite. A necklace wouldn't necessarily bring up that conversation every time, said Lakey, 31. Instead, she took the 3 carat oval stone from her engagement ring and had it placed into a pendant. It's pretty blingy and I wear it on special occasions, she says. On the other hand, Jade Schnecker, a New York City commercial real estate agent who also stars on the Netflix show Owning Manhattan, found the idea of a divorce ring thrilling. After splitting with her ex in February 2024, Shaker took the 4 carat pear shaped diamond from her engagement ring and set it on a ring next to a new 4.3 carat lab grown diamond. It feels kind of cool to say I'm someone's first wife, says Shaker, 29, who is reframing divorce as a symbol of status rather than stigma. The most badass women in the world are those Upper East Siders who've had 2 or 3 husbands and don't care what anyone thinks. And that's me now. This is called In My Kitchen. Molly Bass on restocking her kitchen after the LA fires, Dutch ovens, and the ultimate crepes. The cook reflects on finding joy in food again, her obsession with pop top containers, the crepe recipe that lifted her from a rut. And this is my by Nora Kalmashner. This time last year, Molly Bass and her family were shuttling between short term rentals and homes of friends and family. That January, wildfires destroyed their home built by her husband, Bent Willett, in Altameda, California. Baz's beloved butter yellow kitchen was gone. The cookbook author and entrepreneur, 37, was forced to reassess her relationship to material items as well as to food and cooking. I had a hard time dipping back into the joy of eating because it felt like I didn't deserve it, she said. I was in a period of mourning, and I didn't want to give myself worldly pleasures because I thought it would make me feel icky or sad. Baz gradually returned to the kitchen, starting with comforting, tender, and slow meals like chicken bone broth and lentil soup. I knew it would be the thing to pull me out of my sadness. She continued to grow her mayonnaise brand, AYOA, which has expanded to grocery stores nationwide, and to develop recipes for her subscription based site, The Club. She has plans to rebuild, but as of now, is settled into a light filled long term rental in Pasadena with Willet, a furniture and spatial designer, and their 1.5-year-old son, Gio. Here she shares her minimalist approach to restocking a kitchen from scratch, a smart pantry organization solution, and the crepe recipe that rescued her from a cooking rut. This past year has been the most challenging year of my life. It's so disorienting to lose your center of gravity, to have to start over at 37, where nothing in your life looks familiar except for the human beings. Every piece of clothing, pot, pan is different. It's a lot for your brain to register a complete overhaul of your material world. The two staples in my life are my family and my work. I am so grateful that neither were taken away from me. My appreciation for food has really strengthened. I've realized how much it has been a part of my ability to bounce back. I have a lot of gratitude for food right now. Rebuilding a kitchen from scratch strips everything away and forces you to think about what is necessary. I now own probably 60% less gear and appliances than before. I realize there's very little you can't do with a pretty pared down selection of tools. The first kitchen tools on my must replace list were a microplane and a Staub Dutch oven. It made a registry to allow our friends and family to help us recollect the basics. I was really sad about buying Dutch ovens because I had a collection of 20 that I'd been collecting my whole career. I cook everything in a Dutch oven. A microplane is core to the way I cook because I use a lot of lemon zest and grated garlic. It's part of what makes my food taste like me. The most overwhelming thing to replace was my pantry. It had so many unique items and things I've collected over the years. All my spices and rice paper noodles, canned goods, condiments, vinegars, oils. The collections whole made it easy for me to cook the way I wanted to cook and to feel like I was a cook. One of my favorite ingredients from my old pantry was sweet glutinous rice flour, aka mochi flour. I love the chewy, bouncy texture it creates in baked goods. I started making pancakes with thinner and thinner batter and replaced all purpose flour with the glutinous rice flour. Through playing around, I landed on my recipe for scrunch mochi crepes. You cook them really quickly in a pan with butter and then scrunch them, which allow for the maple soy butter to pool in all the little pockets. I made them at a moment when I was starting to find joy again in cooking, not just cooking out of survival. I remember finishing the recipe and being like, This is joy. Reorganizing my pantry made me feel like I can breathe again. Being in a new place meant I didn't have my systems anymore. It got pretty chaotic. After the reorg, which took 2 very long days, I would come home and be like, I want to cook right now. I knew where everything was. Everything was labeled. I recommend that anyone do it. My favorite pantry organizer is OXO Pop Top Containers. I decant almost everything into them. I use a label maker. They have a suction top and they're really easy to open, close, and stack. They come in every size. I'm a pop top girly right now. A lot of people do mason jars, but because pop tops are square, you can fit more in one space. I made a mayo line because there's such a delta between a sandwich made in the average American home and one made in great sandwich shops. I want to close the gap. You don't have to do much other than replace your normal Hellman's mayonnaise and Dijon mustard with a bottle of AYOH, and all of a sudden you have a crunchy, dill pickled flavored turkey sandwich. People are not going to start quickly pickling onions and making chili jams, but they will grab an exciting bottle of mayonnaise and let it do the heavy lifting. I use AYOH. I'm spelling it because I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. More as an ingredient than just as a spread. You can make a delicious, creamy, mustardy vinaigrette easily. Take a couple tablespoons of the Dijonno Ariel's mayo mustard sauce. Throw in a shallot or grated garlic and whisk in vinegar and oil. This miso mayo is great as a marinade for steak or chicken thighs. You can use it as is or grate ginger into it. So at the end of the article, she adds a recipe for scrunch mochi crepes with cold citrus and maple soy butter. I love a fat American style pancake a lot, but I love these thin, lacy mochi numbers even more, says Molly Bess of these crepes. Her tip: don't be afraid to make that batter really thin. That's what makes them so delicate. The total time is 40 minutes, the active time is 25 minutes, and it makes 6 crepes. And the ingredients you need are 4 tablespoons of butter plus more for greasing the pan, 1 1/4 cups of glutinous rice flour, 1 cup of milk, 1 large egg, 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, kosher salt, a half a cup of maple syrup, 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of soy sauce, 12 ounces of mixed winter citrus, such as Cara Cara oranges, Sumo citrus kumquats, mandarins, blood oranges, or plain mandarins. Flaky salt for finishing. The directions: to make the batter: melt 1 tablespoon of butter in a medium bowl. Combine rice flour, milk, egg, sugar, melted butter, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Whisk this vigorously until smooth. Let set for at least 15 minutes. Give it a final whisk until smoothing before using. Make the syrup and prep the citrus. In a small saucepan, combine maple syrup, soy sauce, and remaining butter. Bring to a simmer swirling pan until butter is melted, about a minute. Season with kosher salt. Rewarm before serving. Using a sharp knife, cut the peel and pith off citrus and slice crosswise into rounds. Keep in refrigerator until ready to plate. Make the crepes. Heat a 12-inch non-stick or cast iron skillet over medium-high heat for 1.5 minutes. Grease pan with butter. Pour a scant 1/3 cup batter to the center and swirl pan to distribute batter to edges. Cook until edges are beginning to crisp and underside is golden brown, about 2.5 minutes. Increase heat if edges aren't crispy. Flip and cook about 1 minute more. Before removing from pan, slightly scrunch the crepe, pushing the edges inward. Transfer to a plate and cover with foil to keep warm. Repeat with remaining batter. Serve with warm maple soy butter, cold citrus, and a pinch of flaky salt. You are listening to the reading of articles and features from Off Duty from the Wall Street Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. From the Food and Drink page, think $20 martinis are pricey? Meet the $50 pina colada. From the Rolls-Royce Pina Colada to the S&P 500, four pricey drinks take cocktail craft to the next level. And this is by Robert Simonson. These days, sticker shock doesn't stop at the grocery store. At many bars around the country, a martini that once cost $16 regularly costs $22. Some places are pushing the limits even further, rolling out high drama cocktails priced at 20, 30, or even $50 above the norm. Bar directors know such prices can elicit scoffs or disbelief, but they justify the big ticket tipples by comparing them to special occasion items at restaurants. Scott Baird of the storied Starlight Bar atop the Beacon Grand Hotel in San Francisco suggests you think of premium cocktails as the tomahawk ribeye of the cocktail world. Here are four places where the splurge is part of the point. A drink and a show. Recently, Bard decided to add a few drinks that were more fun and a little bit showy to the menu. The bar's Rolls Royce Pina Colada, which costs $50 and serves two, is made with not one but three rums: Don Q 7-year old, Pampero Anniversaro, and rum Argola, which is a mixture of Remy's Martin XO cognac, coconut cream, fresh pineapple, lime, and ebonist. Befitting the name, the drink arrives in a frozen pineapple crowned with sparklers. It makes it fun to spend money, said Bard. The showmanship also serves another function. Bard says all it takes is carrying one order through the room to prompt a dozen more. If you're really just having a drink, one drink, make it count. At the elegant portrait bar inside New York's Fifth Avenue Hotel, the Vue Carry XOXO is a high-tone version of the classic New Orleans cocktail. Instead of the run-of-the-mill rye and cognac, it evolves a 10-year-old Michelin rye, Jean Fallou's XO Grand Reserve Cognac, Capabello's Parlo Chianto, an urbanly infused wine, and Benedictine. On the menu, it sits apart in its own box like a daily special. It costs $65. It's for people who really appreciate a lot of these rarer bottles or more luxurious bottles, says Daryl Chan, the bar director. Somewhat ironically, Chan attributes the drink's popularity to a growing contingent of customers who want to cut back on booze. I think if they're going to have one or two drinks, they want it to be something memorable, he says. Catering to the connoisseur, the Bamboo Room, a smaller bar within the sprawling Chicago Tiki Oasis 3 dots and a dash, attracts a regular crowd of devotees who love its rum flights and elevated takes on tiki classics. For the bar's rendition of the Port Light, bar director Kevin Beery chose to use Kamikaze's 12-year-old Japanese whiskey and Appleton 15-year-old Jamaican rum. The drink, which costs $45, comes in a special vessel designed by a local glassblower. True cocktail nerds would recognize the ruby red glass as a homage to use at Trader Vic's, the Oakland, California born chain where the drink originated. A touch of art in a glass. Like the Rolls-Royce cocktail, the S&P 500 at Shinji's in Manhattan emphasizes aesthetics. This $39 clarified cocktail is also composed of fancy spirits. In this case, the Macmillan Bourbon Oak Scotch, the VSOP Cognac, and Teeling's Black It's Single Malt Irish Whiskey. Instead of ice, the drink comes with a chilled beer that looks and tastes like a classic black and white cookie. From the reports page, where did all the cheap restaurants go? As the price differences between low end and middle established vanishes, I've decided it's time to change my eating habits. And this is by Chris Cornells. I've had it with trying to find cheap places to eat. There used to be places where burgers, salads, draft beers, and the mid-brow fare that's in my sweet spot could seem like a pretty good deal. Now, no matter where I'm eating, I'm paying pretty much the same price. When I get barbecue at a food truck, eaten outside, off a falling over picnic table, it's the same price I pay sitting at the Marble Bar at a downtown restaurant that also provides water refills, clean bathrooms, service, and silverware. I do understand why this is happening, and it's hard to blame the restaurants. Everything is expensive thanks to factors like increasing labor costs and inflation that includes persistently high prices for some staples. The price of beef, for instance, was up more than 16% in December from a year earlier, according to the Labor Department. Establishments that sell only a few items, say food trucks and burger joints, have little room to absorb those higher prices, so they're more likely to have to pass them on to the consumer. But a steakhouse can try to make up for rising costs by jacking up the price on their porterhouse while keeping some more excessively priced items like burgers, the food I generally eat, on their bar menus. While I'm sure that I'm not alone in feeling this way, I know that my family and friends are sick of hearing me whine about it. So I've decided to stop complaining. This piece is my swan song. But I've also decided to stop spending my money on what used to be the bargain joints and started spending at establishments where I feel like I get more for those pricey burgers, salads, and beers. Where's the service? I've been feeling this shrinking price gap for a few years. Whether my family is getting a casual teriyaki for dinner, I'm out for a nice breakfast with my dad, or I'm getting burgers and beer at a bar with friends. But it all came to a head for me over the summer when I found myself eating out a lot while my wife and kids were out of town. One day I went with a friend to a tap room not far from Bermonton, the blue collar town across the water from Seattle where I live. Lunch was served out of a food truck. We were given pagers. When they buzzed, we walked back to the truck to pick up our food. My bill, $15 for a fish burger and small fries. When we were done, we bussed our own tables, sorted our garbage from recycling. My friend got a beer and it was $8. I asked for water and the bartender pointed me toward the drinking fountain and some plastic cups. Tips were expected. For what? I'm not sure. I'm happy to tip for service, but pointing towards a water fountain, handing someone a fish sandwich on a paper boat, and asking customers to do their own dishes feels less like service and more like the least you can do. The next day, I went to Five Guys and tried to order a bacon burger and regular fries. But after standing at the counter and getting no service or nods of recognition for what I felt was an awfully long time, long enough for me to take note, I left. Just as well. I couldn't believe the burger and fries would have set me back $21. I have no problem with no frills service or self service when I am getting a deal in return. In fact, such places often are my go tos. The service might be minimal sometimes, but hey, the food is good and cheap. But now it feels like that trade off has become one sided. A burger with a view. A day after the failed Five Guys run, I decided to treat myself with a more upscale outing. I drove through the woods and along a fjord until I reached the Elderbrook Resort and Spa in a town called Union. Bill Gates has a place nearby, and there was a McLaren parked out front. The last time I ate at a restaurant was for my wife's birthday. On the menu at the bar, Kobe beef burger with fries topped with bacon and avocado for $25. It turns out that this fancy burger cost just a few dollars more than the one at Five Guys. I ended up ordering a Caesar salad for $14, and that option was a little cheaper than the sandwich I purchased from the food truck earlier in the week. But the game changer for me was what I got beyond the food. My meal came with metal utensils and a cloth napkin. My seat at the bar was a view of the water, the Olympic Mountains, and the Mariners baseball game. The bartender even poured me a glass of ice water to go with my $8 beer. If I can get an arguably better burger and all those extras for just a few dollars more, not to mention a beer for the same price, isn't it worth it? Of course, rising prices is a restaurant owner prerogative. Many have no choice if they want to stay in business these days. But I am also making a choice. I am choosing to spend my money differently. I don't have to pay resort prices at a food truck. When I or my family go out to eat, I'm not going to complain about the prices. I'm going to gladly pay $25 for a burger and $8 for a beer. And I'm going to tip. I'm just going to choose to do it in a place with clean toilets, table service, and a $1 billion view. This article is a television article. The latest Kennedy controversy is a show about JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. A Kennedy family member and fans have spoken out against Love Story, but creators say the show is respectful about the relationship, and this is by Ashley Wong. Despite John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy's reputation as one of America's most famous couples in the 1990s, much of their personal lives before they died tragically in a July 16, 1999, plane crash remains unknown. How did they meet? How did they fall in love? And exactly where they so angry about when they were caught fighting in a New York park. A new TV show hopes to offer some answers. Love Story is a limited series out Thursday from producer Ryan Murphy, known for shows like The American Horror Story and Monsters, the Lyle and Eric Mendez story. It devolves into the couple's whirlwind romance, the unrelenting paparazzi and public scrutiny, their rumored family tensions, and the events that led up to their deaths. The show comes when the family is firmly back in the cultural conversation. Health and Human Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Making America Healthy Again policies have rolled back federal vaccination requirements and linked Tylenol usage to autism. Jack Schlossenberg, J.F. Kennedy Jr.'s nephew and grandson of President John F. Kennedy, announced a run for Congress last year, and his sister, the environmental journalist Tatiana Schlossberg, wrote about her acute myeloid leukemia diagnosis weeks before her death at age 35. Love Story starring Paul Anthony Kelly as JFK Jr. and Sarah Pigeon as Bissett is inspired by the 2024 biography Once Upon a Time, The Captivating Life of Carolyn Bissett Kennedy, written by the journalist Elizabeth Beller. Despite the sensational frenzy that can come with all things Kennedy, the showrunners maintain that their approach to the relationship and the family is respectful. It aims to tell a complicated story in a passionate, nuanced way. We know that we're making something for television and it is entertainment, but we hope that we're bringing their legacy and who they were to a generation of people who don't know them, said Brad Simpson, one of the executive producers. In June, Jack Schlossberg says in social media that his family had not been consulted for the new show, but accused Murphy of profiting off of his uncle's life in a grotesque way. A month later, during an appearance on California Governor Gavin Newsom's podcast, Murphy categorized the response as an odd choice to be mad about a relative that you really don't remember. Representatives for Schlossberg did not respond to the request for comment. Murphy declined to comment further through representatives. All eyes have been on the show since its early production when Murphy released now deleted early test images on Instagram last June of the actors in costume. Fans immediately pounced on the styling and Bissett's wig, calling it cheap and inauthentic. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Bissett's former hair colorist, Brad Johns, reflects on the hair color as burnt and ashy. That's not the color at all, John said of the initial reaction to seeing the wig. Now retired and working as a glass artist, he met Bissett in the early 1990s and colored her hair for 5 years. While working in New York's Orb Salon, he took her hair from brown to a signature multi-dimensional golden hue, then touched up her roots every other week and refreshed the color 4 times a year. We hated white, thin hair. For many, the story goes beyond shades of blonde and finding the right Birkin bag and into what the couple actually meant to the public. I think that people felt, speculating here, that if you can't get the fashion right, then maybe you're not going to get the rest right, says Rosemarie Terzino, Kennedy Jr.'s former executive assistant and author of 2 books on her former boss, Fairy Tale Interrupted and JFK Jr., an intimate oral biography. Showrunners took the feedback and adjusted in real time. They brought on a new costume designer, Ruby Mans, who meticulously resourced and recreated the pieces the set wore. They ditched the wig and dyed pigeoned hair blonde, knowing fans would be doing side by side comparison of the actress and the set. John deemed the new hair better based on glimpses from the trailer. Lessons learned, producer said. We needed to stick as closely as possible to the images people loved, Simpson said. Even with the pushback from fans, there's still a clear audience for this romantic reimaging. The family continues to fascinate the American psyche several decades and generations later. I think that there are some members of the family who are very possessive of John and his memory, and I understand that, but they don't get to control how other people's remember John, said Steve Gallion, a historian, former friend of JFK Jr.'s and the author of Americans Reluctant Prince, The Life of John F. Kennedy Jr. Friends of the couple still grow emotional recounting memories of their old friends, but those who spoke to the Wall Street Journal weren't scandalized by the show's existence. There's something about keeping their memory alive. I think it's important. Parts of me don't like it, and then there are parts of me that actually feel comforted by it because I miss them. Early episodes open with Bissette as an independent young woman taking New York City by storm, followed by her meeting Kennedy, their first date, and falling in love. As the years pass, public scrutiny slowly causes her to withdraw, straining their marriage. Every private moment and conversation depicted in the show was sketched out by deep, extensive research into a specific period of their lives, says Connor Hines, the show's executive producer, co writer, and creator. Hines wanted to explore Bissette's life before she met Kennedy and to challenge outdated narratives about who she was. Unlike JFK's storied upbringing, Bissette was raised in a middle class family and worked her way from a small job in Massachusetts to the top ranks of Calvin Klein. The show's Bissette is playful, flirtatious, free spirited, and wary of JFK's Jr.'s fame, a far cry from the cold, reserved reputation the real life Bissette was given. The showrunners decided not to reach out to family or friends of the couple, saying they wanted to avoid getting tangled in conflicting stories and opinions. Carolyn Kennedy, JFK Jr.'s sister and member of the Bissette's family, did not respond to requests for comment. I feel confident that if and when people watch the show, they will see that it was handled with great care and sensitivity. There is a cottage industry of tell-all media about Kennedy and Bissette's relationship, much of it powered by the people who have claimed to be close to them. This universe is often at war with itself and its inhabitants at war with each other over the accuracy of their personal experience. This means even though the couple lives on countless books, documentaries, podcasts, and paparazzi photos, there is truly little known about their private interactions. There are still plenty of blanks for showrunners to fill in. We always aim, I say, emotional and character truths, said Nina Jacobson, an executive director whose freshman year at Brown University overlapped with JFK's senior year there. Hines tried to imagine what their happy moments were like, such as their first date or wedding planning in their apartment. He, de- he described making up those scenes as a leap of faith, believing that there had to have been some keeping the couple together during hard times. Their conflicts were so publicly reported that none of the loving moments between them ever made headlines, he says. According to Richard Bradley, former executive director of George magazine and the author of American Son, a portrait of John F. Kennedy Jr., JFK himself probably wouldn't have wanted to stop the show. He was used to people writing about him and usually getting it wrong, Bradley said, and it didn't anger him much. It may not be anything you want to be, but people are talking about them, and that, as John himself would have agreed, better than the alternative, Bradley said. Been listening to the reading of articles and features from Saturday, Sunday, February 14th, 15th issue of Off Duty from the Wall Street Journal. We read from Off Duty every Saturday at 6 p.m. Your reader has been Patricia Mary. Thank you for listening. God bless and be safe out there.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have Harper's Magazine. At 8 o'clock, we have Sports Illustrated. At 9 o'clock, we have The Athletic, a section of the New York Times. Stay with us for these readings and more through the rest of the evening. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print